There live a young lady named Jennifer. She's an orphan. She grew up in a small village in Africa. She never knew her parents, because they died when she was just a baby. She was left all alone in the world. Jennifer was taken in by a kind old woman who lived in the village. The old woman, Mrs. Caroline, did her best to care for Jennifer, but she was poor and struggled to provide for her. As Jennifer grew older, she began to realize that life wasn't fair. She saw other kids with their parents, and they seemed to have everything they needed. Jennifer felt like she was missing out on something special. "Hey, why are you so sad, Jennifer?" Mrs. Caroline would ask her. "I don't know, Mama," Jennifer would reply. "I just wish I had a mom and dad like everyone else." Mrs. Caroline would hug her and say, "You may not have a mom and dad, but you have me, and I love you just the same." Despite the challenges she faced, Jennifer was a bright and determined young lady. She worked hard in school and earned good grades. She dreamed of going to college and making a better life for herself, but Jennifer's situation was tough. Mrs. Caroline was old and sick, and Jennifer had to take care of her. She had to cook, clean, and fetch water from the well. She also had to work on the farm to earn money for food and school fees. One day, Mrs. Caroline called Jennifer to her bedside. She told her that she was proud of the strong and smart young lady she had become. She said that she knew she wouldn't be around forever, but she wanted Jennifer to know that she loved her and would always be with her in spirit. Jennifer was heartbroken when Mrs. Caroline passed away. She felt alone and scared, but she knew she had to be strong. She buried Mrs. Caroline and said goodbye to the only family she had ever known. After the funeral, Jennifer realized that she had nowhere to go. She had no family, no home, and no money. She felt like she was all alone in the world, but Jennifer refused to give up. After Mrs. Caroline's death, Jennifer's life took a turn for the worse. She was only 16 years old and had no one to turn to. The villagers, who had once been kind and supportive, began to treat her poorly. The woman who had promised to take Jennifer in after Mrs. Caroline's death, Auntie Grace, turned out to be cruel and heartless. She made Jennifer do all the household chores, from cooking and cleaning to fetching water and firewood. Jennifer was treated like a servant, not a family member. Auntie Grace would often scold Jennifer and tell her that she was worthless and would never amount to anything. She would take Jennifer's small earnings from her part-time job and use them to buy things for her own children. Jennifer felt like she was all alone in the world. She had no one to talk to, no one to trust. She began to doubt her own worth and wondered if she would ever find happiness. One day, Auntie Grace's husband, Uncle John, tried to take advantage of Jennifer. He would often make inappropriate comments and try to touch her inappropriately. Jennifer was scared and didn't know what to do. She tried to avoid Uncle John as much as possible, but it seemed like he was always lurking around, waiting for his chance to pounce. Jennifer felt trapped and helpless. Despite all the challenges she faced, Jennifer refused to give up. She knew that she deserved better, and she was determined to make a better life for herself. Jennifer began to secretly save money and make plans to leave Auntie Grace's house. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to take the risk. One day, Jennifer finally gathered the courage to leave. She packed her small bag and set out into the unknown. She had no idea where she was going or what she would do, but she knew she had to get away from Auntie Grace and Uncle John. As Jennifer walked away from the only home she had known for years, she felt a mix of emotions. She was scared, but she was also determined. She knew that she would Jennifer walked for hours, not knowing where she was going or what she would do when she got there. She had only a small bag of clothes and a few coins in her pocket. She was hungry, thirsty, and scared. As the sun began to set, Jennifer saw a small village in the distance. She walked towards it, hoping to find someone who could help her. As she entered the village, she saw people staring at her. They looked at her with suspicion and curiosity. Jennifer approached an old woman who was sitting by the roadside. "Please, Ma," Jennifer said, "I'm looking for a place to stay. Can you help me?" The old woman looked at Jennifer with kindness. "Where are you from, child?" she asked. Jennifer explained her situation. And the old woman listened carefully. When Jennifer finished, the old woman nodded. "You can stay with me tonight," she said. "But tomorrow, you'll have to find a way to support yourself." Jennifer was grateful for the old woman's kindness. She stayed with her for years, helping with household chores in exchange for food and shelter, but as she turned 23, Jennifer knew she couldn't stay forever. She needed to find a way to support herself. She started looking for work, but it wasn't easy. Many people were hesitant to hire a young girl with no family or connections. Jennifer struggled to survive. She went hungry many days, and she had to sleep on the streets some nights. She was constantly looking over her shoulder. Afraid of being harassed or harmed, despite the challenges, Jennifer refused to give up. She kept looking for work, and eventually, she found a job as a maid in a wealthy household. The work was hard, but it paid enough for Jennifer to rent a small room and buy food. Jennifer's life was still tough, but she was determined to make a better life for herself. She started saving money, hoping to one day start her own business. As 2 years passed, Jennifer's life slowly began to improve. She made friends with some of the other maids in the house, and they supported and encouraged her. She also started to see a way out of her difficult situation, but just when things were starting to look up, Jennifer received some devastating news. The wealthy family she worked for was moving away, and they wouldn't need her services anymore. Jennifer was heartbroken. She had lost her job, and she didn't know how she would survive. Jennifer was devastated when she lost her job. She had been working for the wealthy family for over 2 years, and she had grown to rely on the steady income. Without a job, Jennifer was faced with the daunting task of starting all over again. She spent the first few days in a state of panic, not knowing what to do or where to turn. She had no savings to fall back on, and she was struggling to make ends meet. She had to rely on the kindness of friends and acquaintances just to get by, but as the days turned into weeks, Jennifer began to realize that she couldn't give up. She had to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult things seemed. She started by updating her resume and applying to every job opening she could find. However, it seemed like every door she tried to open was met with rejection. She applied to countless jobs, but no one seemed to want to hire her. She began to feel like she was back at square one, with no direction and no hope. One day, as she was walking through the market, Jennifer stumbled upon a small food stall. The owner, a kind-hearted woman named Auntie Mary, was busy preparing meals for her customers. Jennifer struck up a conversation with her, and before long, Auntie Mary offered her a job as a kitchen assistant. The job wasn't glamorous, and the pay was minimal. But Ada was desperate, and she knew that she had to take what she could get. She threw herself into the work, learning everything she could about cooking and running a small business. As the weeks turned into months, Jennifer began to find her footing. She learned to navigate the ups and downs of working in a small business, and she even started to enjoy the sense of camaraderie that came with working in a kitchen. But just when things were starting to look up, Jennifer faced another setback. Auntie Ifeoma's food stall was forced to close due to a dispute with the market authorities. Jennifer was once again left without a job, and she was forced to start all over again. After the food stall closed, Jennifer was back to square one. She had to start looking for a new job, and she was determined to find something better. She applied to several nanny positions, hoping to find a family that would appreciate her kindness and dedication. Days turned into weeks, and Jennifer was starting to lose hope. She had applied to countless jobs, but no one seemed to want to hire her. She was beginning to feel like she would never find a job that would allow her to support herself, but then, one day, Jennifer received a call from a woman named Mrs. Ella. Mrs. Ella explained that she was looking for a nanny to take care of her two young children, and she had come across Jennifer's application. She wanted to schedule an interview with Jennifer to see if she would be a good fit for the job. Jennifer was nervous, but excited as she prepared for the interview. She spent hours researching the best ways to care for young children and practicing her responses to common interview questions. The day of the interview arrived, and Jennifer was dressed in her best outfit, ready to make a good impression. She arrived at the Ella's house and was greeted by Mrs. Ella, who was warm and welcoming. The interview went well, and Jennifer could tell that Mrs. Ella was impressed with her qualifications and experience. A few days later, Mrs. Ella called Jennifer to offer her the job. Jennifer was overjoyed and accepted the offer immediately. As Jennifer started her new job, she was amazed at how much she loved taking care of the Ella's children. They were sweet and affectionate, and they quickly grew to love Jennifer as well. Mrs. Okoro was a kind and fair employer, and Jennifer felt grateful to have found such a wonderful job. For the first time in months, Jennifer felt like she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She had found a job that she loved, and she was finally able to support herself. The tears that had been welling up in her eyes for so long finally began to dry, replaced by a sense of hope and happiness. As Jennifer settled into her new routine, she began to realize that she had finally found a sense of belonging. She was no longer just a struggling orphan, trying to make ends meet. She was a valued member of the Ella family, and she was loved and appreciated for who she was. One day, Mrs. Ella's younger brother, David, visited his sister's house. He had been busy with work and hadn't seen his sister's family in a while. As he walked into the house, he noticed a young woman taking care of the children. She was laughing and playing with them, and David was immediately struck by her beauty and kindness. "Who is that?" David asked his sister, nodding towards the young woman. "That's Jennifer, our new nanny," Mrs. Ella replied. "She's been taking care of the children for a few months now." David's eyes lingered on Jennifer, and he couldn't help but feel a spark of interest. He watched her as she expertly cared for the children, making sure they were fed, bathed, and put to bed on time. Over the next few days, David found himself visiting his sister's house more often, just so he could see Jennifer. He would strike up conversations with her, asking her about her day and her interests. Jennifer was shy at first, but David's charming smile and easygoing nature quickly put her at ease. As David got to know Jennifer better, he found himself falling for her. He was impressed by her kindness, her patience, and her beauty. He knew that he wanted to spend more time with her, to get to know her better and to see if there was a possibility of a romantic relationship between them. One day, David approached his sister and told her about his feelings for Jennifer. "I think I might be falling for Jennifer," he said, looking serious. "I know it may seem sudden, but I really like her. I was wondering if you would be okay with me asking her out." Mrs. Ella looked surprised, but then a smile spread across her face. "I think that's wonderful," she said. "Jennifer is a great person, and I'm sure she would be happy to go out with you. But are you sure you're ready for a serious relationship? You're not exactly known for your commitment to relationships," David laughed. "I know my reputation," he said. "But I'm telling you, sis, Jennifer is different. I feel a connection with her that I've never felt with anyone before. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this relationship work." Mrs. Ella nodded, looking pleased. "I'm happy for you, brother," she said. "Go for it. Ask Jennifer out and see where things go." David grinned, feeling excited and nervous at the same time. He knew that he had to tread carefully, to make sure that Jennifer felt comfortable and respected. But he was willing to take the risk, to see if there was a chance for love between them. With his sister's blessing, David decided to ask Jennifer out on a date. He was nervous but excited as he approached her. "Jennifer, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Jennifer looked up from the children she was playing with and smiled. "Of course, Mr. David." "What's up?" David took a deep breath and launched into his speech. "Jennifer, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past few weeks. You're an amazing person, and I was wondering if you'd like to go out on a date with me." Jennifer's eyes widened in surprise, and she looked taken aback. But then a smile spread across her face, and she nodded. "I'd love to, Mr. David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. David grinned, feeling elated. "Great! I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. on Friday." Jennifer nodded again, and David walked away, feeling like he was on top of the world. Their first date was a success, and they quickly discovered that they had a deep connection. They went on several more dates, and David knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Jennifer. A few weeks later, David took Jennifer to a beautiful beachside resort. They walked along the beach, watching the sunset, and David turned to Jennifer with a small box in his hand. "Jennifer, from the moment I met you, I knew that you were special. Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Jennifer's eyes welled up with tears as she nodded eagerly. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you," she exclaimed. David placed the ring on her finger, and they shared a passionate kiss as the sun dipped below the horizon. Their wedding was a beautiful, intimate affair, with close friends and family in attendance. Jennifer looked stunning in her white wedding gown, and David couldn't take his eyes off her. As they exchanged their vows and sealed their love with a kiss, David knew that he had found his soulmate in Jennifer. He promised to always cherish and support her. And he knew that their love would last a lifetime. After the wedding, David and Jennifer settled into a happy routine. They traveled the world together, built a beautiful home, and started a family. Years later, David would look back on the day he met Jennifer and realize that it was the best day of his life. He had found a true partner, a best friend, and a soulmate in Jennifer, and he knew that their love would continue to grow stronger with each passing day.